Every biker knows the obvious rules. Wear a helmet, don't speed, use your signals. But what if I told you there's a whole other layer of motorcycle laws that barely anyone talks about? Laws so specific, so strange, and so easy to break without even knowing it, they've tripped up even veteran riders. These are the 13 secret motorcycle laws no one knows about, but every rider must. Number 13. Running red lights. When sensors fail, there are laws in America that most drivers have never heard of, but every biker should know. One of them, in several states, it's legal to run a red light. That's right. Under specific conditions, a motorcyclist can lawfully roll through a red signal without getting a ticket. The reason? Traffic sensors. Most intersections in the United States use sensors buried in the pavement to detect vehicles. But here's the catch. These sensors are calibrated for the weight and metal signature of a car, not a motorcycle. Your 800-pound V-twin might glide right over the sensor without being detected, leaving you stranded at a red light that never changes. To fix this, states like Illinois, Missouri, and Minnesota have passed dead red laws. These laws allow a motorcyclist to proceed through a red light after waiting a reasonable time, typically around 120 seconds, if the light fails to cycle and the intersection is clear. You still have to yield to any oncoming traffic, but if the road is clear and you've waited long enough, the law says, go. This isn't a loophole to treat every red light like a suggestion. If a police officer sees you jump the light too early, or without checking for traffic, you could still get cited. That's why it's critical to know not just that the law exists, but exactly how it works in your state. So yes, in some places you can legally run a red, but only if you're patient, alert, and in the know. Let's move from stoplights to something else that could get you stopped cold: your visor. Number 12. Tinted visors are illegal at night. Riding into the sunset with a dark visor feels iconic. It blocks out the harsh light, adds a tough look, and keeps bugs out of your eyes. But the second that sun dips below the horizon, that same visor could get you pulled over. In many states across America, tinted visors are illegal to wear at night. It's one of those laws that seems minor until it isn't. Most riders don't realize that dark visors drastically reduce your visibility in low light. And that makes you a hazard not just to yourself, but to everyone else on the road. States like California, New York, and Illinois require motorcyclists to wear clear or lightly tinted visors when riding after sunset. Some states go even further, writing the rule directly into their motor vehicle codes. If you're wearing a dark smoke visor after dark and a state trooper spots you, expect flashing lights in your mirror. You'll be cited not just for the visor, but possibly for unsafe operation depending on the situation. It's a law that puts safety first, but it catches riders off guard. That's why seasoned bikers often carry a second visor or a pair of clear riding glasses in their saddlebag. There are also photochromic visors that adjust automatically with the sunlight. They cost more up front, but they save you from breaking the law, or worse, riding blind into a curve. So while your dark visor might make you look like a fighter pilot, it's no use if you can't see the road in front of you. Let's move from your face shield to your passenger seat, because not every ride-along is legal. Number 11. No passenger without foot pegs. Picture this. You've just finished tuning up your stripped-down cruiser. Your buddy asks for a quick ride and you're both ready to roll. But here's the thing. If your bike doesn't have passenger foot pegs, that ride could end with a ticket. In many states, it's illegal to carry a passenger unless your motorcycle is properly equipped, and that means two specific things: a dedicated seat for your passenger and a set of foot pegs. Even if your passenger says they don't need them, the law says otherwise. Riders who remove rear pegs for a cleaner aesthetic often don't realize they're violating state regulations. Without those pegs, your passenger has no proper footing, and that's a safety issue in the eyes of the law. Some states even require that the seat itself be explicitly designed for two people. A rear fender with a towel wrapped around it doesn't count. And enforcement isn't light. If you're caught giving a ride without the right setup, expect a citation. In some cases, you might even get points on your license or face additional violations if your bike isn't street legal for two-up riding. It doesn't matter if you're going 3 blocks or 300 miles. The law still applies. So before you invite someone to hop on the back of your cafe racer or bobber, double-check your setup. That 5-minute ride to grab a coffee could turn into a $100 fine and a lesson in legal compliance. And while we're at it, let's talk about something else that's not protecting you like you think it is: your windshield. We dug through state law books, DMV codes, and police reports so you don't have to. If you're learning something new or dodging a fine just from this list, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Number 10. Eye protection is mandatory. Even with a windshield, you might think your windshield has you covered. After all, it's big, it's clear, and it keeps bugs and road grit off your face. But here's the kicker. Several states still require you to wear separate eye protection even if your motorcycle has a full-sized windshield. That's right. A windshield alone doesn't always meet the legal requirement for eye safety. In states like New York, Georgia, and Minnesota, the law clearly states that riders must wear some form of shatter-resistant eye protection. So what counts? A proper face shield attached to a helmet, a pair of shatter-resistant riding glasses, or motorcycle-approved goggles. What does not count? Your bare face, regular sunglasses, or your squint. Some states even go further and regulate the type of lenses allowed at night. If you're riding after dark and your glasses are too darkly tinted, you could be breaking the law without even knowing it. Why are the rules so strict? It all comes down to safety. Windshields are designed to deflect the wind, not stop a flying rock or an airborne bug at 70 miles per hour. A direct hit to the eye could cause a crash in seconds. And if you're not wearing the right gear, a cop who pulls you over may not be in a forgiving mood. So if you're crossing state lines, don't assume your current setup is legal everywhere. You might be fine in one city and end up ticketed just a few miles down the road. Whether you're rocking a full-face lid or an open-face helmet, make sure your eyes are protected the right way. Now let's head south for a law that sounds too wild to be real, but it absolutely is. Number 9. Helmet-free riding. If you're insured. Riding with the wind in your hair sounds like freedom. But depending on where you live, it might also sound like a fine waiting to happen. Contrary to what many people think, not every state requires you to wear a helmet while riding a motorcycle. That's right. States like Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania allow helmet-free riding under certain conditions. But here's the catch. There are rules, and they're not optional. In Florida, you can legally ride without a helmet if you're over 21 years old and carry at least $10,000 in medical insurance specifically for motorcycle-related injuries. Michigan and Pennsylvania have similar laws, with minor variations in age and insurance thresholds. That insurance clause is the part most riders forget and the one that gets them in trouble. If you get pulled over without a helmet, law enforcement can ask for proof of your coverage. If you don't have the right policy, or you're riding a bike with an engine size that falls outside the rule, you could end up with a hefty fine or even license points. And yes, in some states, these exceptions only apply to motorcycles above or below a certain cubic centimeter threshold. It's also worth noting that insurance policies can vary widely. Some don't meet the minimum state requirements, even if they seem like they do. So before you toss that helmet in your saddlebag and ride free, make sure the paperwork in your pocket actually covers your head, legally speaking. Some riders see it as freedom, others see it as foolish, but whatever your stance, the law is the law. But don't get too comfortable just yet. Your foot position could cost you. Number 8. Fines for improper foot placement. Every rider has shifted their feet mid-ride, whether it's to stretch out on a long highway run or adjust after hitting a pothole. But did you know that in some states, even temporarily taking your feet off the foot pegs can get you pulled over? It's true. In places like California and Texas, motorcycle laws include a clause about maintaining proper control of the vehicle, and that includes keeping both feet on the pegs at all times while in motion. The logic is about safety. When your feet are on the pegs, you're in a stable, balanced riding posture. You can shift your weight, brake smoothly, and stay in control. But the moment you swing your legs out to the side, stretch one out like you're on a recliner, or let them dangle casually near the pavement, you're technically not in full control. And that's enough to justify a traffic stop. This law hits newer riders the hardest, especially those who don't yet have long-distance stamina. It also affects riders who cruise in hot weather and instinctively move their legs to avoid engine heat. But whether you're on a softail or a touring bagger, the rule still applies. Some officers might give you a warning but don't count on it. A single missed foot peg could lead to a fine, and if you've got other violations stacked on top, it could turn into a costly stop. So while it might seem like a harmless move, keep your feet where they belong. The law is watching, right down to your boots. Now let's zoom out to a bigger issue: lane splitting and why it might be legal where you least expect it. Number 7. Lane splitting is legal or tolerated in certain states. Lane splitting. It's one of the most controversial topics in the motorcycle world and one of the most misunderstood. In most of the United States, weaving between cars while traffic is stopped or crawling will land you a ticket, but not everywhere. In fact, some states not only allow it, they encourage it. That includes California, the only state in the country where lane splitting is fully legal and clearly defined in the vehicle code. In California, riders are allowed to move between cars when traffic is slow or stopped, typically at speeds under 40 miles per hour. The goal is to reduce congestion, prevent rear-end collisions, and keep bikers from overheating in summer traffic. It's not about speed, it's about flow. The California Highway Patrol even offers official guidelines on how to do it safely and legally. But California isn't alone. States like Utah and Arizona have introduced their own versions of lane filtering. In Utah, for example, lane filtering is allowed when traffic is completely stopped at a red light and the motorcyclist stays under 15 miles per hour. Arizona passed a similar law, and other states like Oregon and Montana are actively studying the idea. The catch? These laws are highly state-specific, and what's legal in one city might get you pulled over just a few miles away. That's why it's essential to know the laws before you split lanes in unfamiliar territory. One wrong move could mean fines, points, or worse, a crash caused by an unaware driver. Lane splitting can be a game-changer for riders, but only if you know when and where it's allowed. That lane freedom is tempting, but there's another shortcut that might surprise you. Number 6. Illegal handlebar heights, the ape hanger rule. You've seen the look. Tall, aggressive, arms straight up ape hanger handlebars that make a rider look like they're flying through the wind. It's iconic, it's bold, and in many states, it's illegal. That's right. There are actual laws on the books that limit how high your handlebars can be, and if you go too high, you're not just making a style statement, you're breaking the law. Most states use a specific measurement. Your handlebars can't be higher than your shoulders when you're seated on the motorcycle. In states like Texas, New York, and Georgia, officers have pulled riders over just to check this. Some states go even further, setting fixed height limits like 15 inches above the seat, regardless of your height. Why the restriction? It's about control and safety. With excessively high bars, it becomes harder to steer, especially in emergency situations. Your arms get tired, your response time slows, and braking becomes more awkward. It might look cool, but lawmakers see it as dangerous. Here's the kicker. What's legal in one state could get you ticketed in the next. So if you're on a cross-country ride and those ape hangers are pushing the limit, you might want to pack a tape measure with your map. The next time you're customizing your bars, remember, shoulder height isn't just a comfort guideline, it could be the legal limit. From shoulders to sidewalks, this next rule might save your parking spot when you least expect it. Number 5. Sidewalk parking is legal in some cities. Sidewalk parking sounds like a guaranteed way to get ticketed, or worse, towed. But depending on where you're riding, it might actually be one of the best-kept secrets in motorcycle parking law. In certain cities across the United States, motorcycle riders are legally allowed to park on sidewalks, as long as they don't block pedestrian access or violate local regulations. San Francisco is one of the most famous examples. In parts of the city, motorcycles are not only tolerated on sidewalks, they're welcome, provided they stay out of the way of foot traffic and comply with posted signage. This local law was born out of necessity. In dense urban environments, motorcycles don't need much room. A standard cruiser can easily fit between bike racks or alongside buildings without disrupting the flow. In cities where parking is a nightmare, this makes a lot of sense. But, and this is a big but, these laws are extremely localized. Just because you parked legally in one block doesn't mean you're safe 2 streets over. In most areas, sidewalk parking is still illegal, and even in cities where it's allowed, enforcement can vary. Some neighborhoods have private security patrols that treat sidewalk bikes as a nuisance. Others have law enforcement officers who don't know the hyperlocal rules or choose to ignore them. That means even when you're technically legal, you might still end up with a ticket if you park in the wrong zone or misread a sign. So before you pop your kickstand on the concrete, do your research. Read the signs, check the municipal codes, and make sure you're not blocking ramps or driveways. Now let's look at something you probably didn't even know needed a light, but the law says otherwise. Number 4, you need a white downward-facing plate light. It's one of the smallest components on your motorcycle, but one of the most legally important. We're talking about the license plate light. In many states across the United States, it is required by law that your license plate be illuminated by a white, downward-facing light. And no, those multicolor LED strips under your fender don't count. It has to be a clean, steady white light that directly shines on the numbers and letters of your plate, and it must be visible from a reasonable distance. States like Texas, Georgia, and Arizona take this rule especially seriously. Riders are often pulled over at night for having dim plate lights, incorrect colors like blue or red, or having no plate light at all. And yes, it can even happen during the day if your light isn't wired to stay on whenever the bike is running. This means aftermarket setups that look cool might also be an open invitation for police attention. The plate light law is considered an equipment violation, but it can trigger more than just a fine. If a police officer stops you for your plate light and finds anything else, expired tags, non-compliant exhaust, or even helmet violations, you could be looking at a stack of tickets. And in some jurisdictions, having no visible plate light can be seen as an attempt to evade identification. So before your next night ride, double-check your plate light. Make sure it's wired properly, clean, and casting a bright white beam straight down. It might cost $5 to fix, but it can save you hundreds in fines and a whole lot of hassle. That's your plate, but what about your license itself? Number 3, separate license needed for trikes or sidecars. You passed your motorcycle test, got the endorsement on your license, and you're ready to hit the road. 2 wheels, 3 wheels, doesn't matter, right? Not exactly. In several states, riding a trike or a motorcycle with a sidecar actually requires a completely separate license classification. California is the biggest example, where you'll need what's known as a Class M3 license to legally operate a 3-wheeled motorcycle. Why? Because the handling dynamics of a trike or sidecar rig are vastly different from a 2-wheeled motorcycle. There's no leaning into corners, no counter steering in the traditional sense, and braking behavior changes significantly. It's closer to piloting a small convertible than it is to carving twisties on a bagger. That's why the Department of Motor Vehicles in some states insists on separate testing for 3-wheelers. And here's where it really trips riders up. If you take your motorcycle test on a trike, your license may only cover 3-wheeled bikes. You wouldn't be legally allowed to ride a standard 2-wheeler without taking an additional test. This has caused plenty of confusion, especially among new riders purchasing Can-Am models, sidecar-equipped cruisers, or older riders switching to trikes for comfort reasons. They assume that a motorcycle is a motorcycle, but legally the government sees things differently. Always double-check your state's licensing requirements before buying or registering a trike or sidecar rig. Otherwise, that sleek new ride could end up sitting in your garage, collecting dust, while you wait for a licensing appointment you didn't know you needed. That's the kind of surprise that hits after the purchase, just like this next one. Number 2, side-by-side riding can be illegal. Riding side-by-side with your buddy down a scenic 2-lane highway looks great in photos, and for many it's a symbol of freedom, unity, and camaraderie on the road. But depending on where you're riding, it could also be illegal. In states like Montana and Arkansas, 2 abreast motorcycle riding, meaning 2 bikes riding directly next to each other in the same lane, is against the law. Instead, some jurisdictions require riders to maintain a staggered formation or ride single file at all times. The reason? Safety and maneuverability. When riders are in a side-by-side position, they reduce their ability to swerve, dodge, or brake effectively in an emergency. There's also less space to respond to hazards like potholes, debris, or distracted drivers veering into the lane. In a staggered formation, one rider follows slightly behind the other, maintaining a clear escape path if something goes wrong. These rules are not always obvious. Many motorcyclists are taught to ride side by side during training drills, especially at low speeds in parking lots or parades. But once you're out on public roads, especially at higher speeds, some states treat that formation as a violation. And while enforcement can vary, getting pulled over for side-by-side riding isn't unheard of. Group rides with multiple riders often come under scrutiny in these areas. If you're riding in unfamiliar states or organizing a group cruise, check local laws before locking into a shoulder-to-shoulder lineup. That photo opportunity could turn into a traffic stop faster than you think. And finally, we've got a law so old school, it's practically folklore, but still on the books. Number 1. Obsolete but enforced. Outdated local ordinances. You'd think that with modern riding technology, GPS tracking, and advanced safety gear, we'd all be governed by up-to-date motorcycle laws. But in some parts of the United States, there are local ordinances that date back decades, sometimes more than a century, and they're still technically enforceable today. We're talking about old dusty laws like no motorcycle honking after midnight, no Sunday riding in residential areas, or motorcycles must be escorted by a man carrying a lantern after dark. As ridiculous as they sound, some of these rules are still in the municipal code. Take small towns in rural counties across the Midwest or the South. These areas often have hyper-local traffic codes that were never removed or updated. Most police departments overlook them, but every once in a while you'll hear about a rider who got cited for something nobody thought was real. Maybe it was a noise ordinance tied to a specific decibel limit from the 1970s. Maybe it was a ban on riding through a public park after sunset, even if the road technically cuts through it. In rare cases, these outdated laws have been enforced during festivals, rallies, or late-night patrols when police are cracking down on even minor violations. Some of these laws are so poorly written, even officers are unclear about what counts as a violation. But that won't stop them from issuing a ticket if they decide to make an example. If you're rolling through unfamiliar territory, especially in small-town America, take a few minutes to check for weird local rules. That strange ordinance could still carry real fines, and local judges often back them up. Some laws feel ancient, but the fines are very real. And there you have it. 13 motorcycle laws that most riders don't even know exist, but every rider should absolutely understand. Some might save you from a ticket, others could keep you safer on the road, and a few, well, they just make for one hell of a story at the next meetup. Now we want to hear from you. What's the weirdest or most surprising motorcycle law you've ever come across? Have you ever gotten pulled over for something you didn't even know was illegal? Drop your story in the comments below and let's swap some road wisdom. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.